Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to untangle a wild legal battle that all came down to the meaning of just three little letters. Believe it or not, a single acronym in a law book could literally decide when hundreds of careers would end. So picture this. It's the early 90s, and the Philippines passes this huge new law to totally reorganize its national police force. But for a whole group of veteran police officers, what should have been a simple transition turned into this massive legal puzzle about when they were supposed to retire. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. Back in 1991, the Philippines rolled out something called Republic Act 6975. Its whole goal was to create a brand new Philippine National Police, the PNP. And they were going to do this by mashing two very different groups together. You had the Philippine Constabulary, which was kind of like a national police force with military roots, and then you had the Integrated National Police, which was made up of all the local civilian police forces. But, in trying to create one big happy family, they accidentally created one big headache of a contradiction. And right here, this is where all the trouble started. See, on one hand, you've got Section 39, super clear, super strict. It says compulsory retirement is at age 56, period, for everybody. But then you flip over to Section 89, and it lays out this special, much gentler transition period just for members of the ENP. It let them retire gradually, from age 60 down to 57 over 4 years. So which one is it? So yeah, that contradiction, that became the absolute core of this whole legal fight. A group of officers who were all former members of the Philippine Constabulary, the PC, they stepped up and said, hey, that nice cushy transition period in Section 89, that should apply to us too. And their whole argument, the entire thing, hinged on how you define those three letters, INP. See, they dug up this older law from 1975 that first created the Integrated National Police. And in that law, their group, the PC, was specifically called the nucleus of the INP, with the local police being the other parts. So in their minds, when the new law said INP, it meant everybody. And the legal principle they were standing on, it was pretty simple but really powerful. It's this idea that where the law does not distinguish, the courts should not distinguish. Basically, the new law just said INP. It didn't add any fine print or exceptions. So they argued it has to apply to everyone who was part of that original INP structure. That includes us. But of course, the government didn't see it that way. The National Police Commission, the body in charge, fired back with a totally different take. They said, hold on a second, the new law itself actually makes a super clear distinction. What they did was point to all these other sections in the new law, where the text treats the PC and the NP as two different things. Time and time again, the law lists them side by side as separate groups being merged together. Their point was, look, if they were really the same thing, why would the law keep listing them separately? So the government's knockout punch was this. The real definition was hiding in plain sight in the new law the whole time. You just had to look for it. Section 90 flat out calls the INP the civilian component of the old force. And that, right there, effectively separated it from the Philippine Constabulary, which, remember, had military origins. So now you've got two totally believable but completely opposite interpretations of the same three letters. This thing was a mess. And naturally, it landed right in the lap of the Supreme Court. They had to figure this out, and to do that, they had to look beyond just the words on the page. And this brings us to a really key idea in law. When a law is ambiguous, when the words can mean two different things, the courts have this tool. They can go back and look at the original legislative debates to figure out what the lawmakers were actually trying to do. And in this case, those records, they were the smoking gun. Check this out. This is a direct quote from the debates, and it was a game changer. One of the representatives says it loud and clear. The new retirement age of 56 wouldn't be a problem for the PC because that was already their retirement age. They weren't changing anything for them. And then, bam, here's the other piece of the puzzle. The same guy goes on to explain that the 4-year transition period, that was specifically put in for the local police because their retirement age was 60. The whole point was to give them a soft landing, to ease them into this new, earlier retirement age. And if there was any doubt left, this quote from the committee chairman, Senator Masada, just seals the deal. He says it in plain Tagalog. Basically, the PC guys lose nothing because 56 was always their retirement age anyway. It couldn't be clearer. The transition was never, ever meant for them. So, with the lawmakers' intent now crystal clear, the Supreme Court's decision was pretty straightforward. They ruled decisively for the government. That transition period, it only applied to the former local police forces, the ones the new law was calling the INP. But here's what's really interesting. The court didn't just stop there. They didn't just say, well, that's what they meant. They went a step further to explain why this distinction wasn't just on purpose, but also completely fair and totally legal. To do this, they used a standard legal tool called the four-part test of reasonableness. It's basically a checklist to make sure that when a law treats two groups differently, it's doing it for a good, fair reason. You have to ask, is there a real difference between them? Is the distinction actually relevant to the law's purpose? Is this a one-time thing or for the future? And does it apply to everyone in that group equally? And when they ran this case through that test, it passed with flying colors. Was there a substantial difference? Yep, 56 versus 60. Was it germane or relevant? Absolutely. It was all about helping the local police adjust. Was it a temporary thing? Yes, a transition period. And did it apply to all local police officers? You bet. The whole thing was legally solid. So at the end of the day, this wasn't about giving one group a special bonus or an extra few years on the job. The law was actually a pretty smart, carefully designed tool. It was all about being fair and managing a really complicated merger of two totally different cultures. So this case gives us a really clear answer for this specific situation. But it also shines a light on a much bigger, timeless debate, right? When the words of a law are murky, should the unwritten intent of the people who wrote it be the final word? It's a huge question about how we should read and follow the laws that shape all of our lives.